Welcome to the military OSINT course from Malfar. Today we will talk about what cannot be filmed during martial law. In this lecture we will consider an importance of caution and safety in photo-video recording, a clear list of objects, elements of military equipment and other details that let the enemy know about the dislocation of our military. Most photos and videos with military equipment on social networks should have never been published. Even this well-known photo of HIMARS, which was published in 2022, had flaws. The number on the front of the vehicle and the identification marking of the military unit on the pickup truck. Why is this inconvenient? A couple of hours and we know most of the social active soldiers from this unit by name. A couple more weeks for monitoring and the hunt for individual task forces can begin. And this is not only a threat to personnel, but also to strategically important equipment. Release of such information can reduce the security of our military. Therefore, we decided to single out a whole lecture on this for further quality work. Well, let's begin, shall we? Let's go over the most important points. The number of the military unit and the name of the military object, elements of heraldry, blue plates. Based on this information, the coordinates of the deployment of military could be found, on which the enemy is capable of launching a missile strike. Checkpoints and location of military personnel. The release of this information could reduce the security of our military. Numbers and markings on military equipment and civilian vehicles parked on the territory of the military facility. By markings, you can find out which unit the equipment belongs to, and in some cases, you can also find the coordinates of the location of military. Markings on official cars of other services, for example, firefighters. Knowing such markings, you can find the coordinates of the location of the military, firefighters, rescuers, etc. Faces of employees of other services, as they can be used to identify the filming location. View from the window of the military building. There may be atypical buildings on the view from the window, by which it is easy to identify the location of the military deployments. Objects on the horizon, by which the location can be identified. For example, there is a church on the territory of military unit, which can be seen through the fence. This church is an excellent landmark for establishing the geolocation of military unit. Equipment that we have in a single copies. For example, HIMARS vehicles, or equipment behind which there are objects that can be used to determine the location of the machine. It is also prohibited to shoot equipment, the transfer of which was not officially reported in the mass media. The face of the military. When you know a person's face, you can find their social networks. By social networks, you can find their name and date of birth, and then get information about their service. When you know which military unit a person belongs to, you can also find the names of the other military personnel on social networks. Their pages often contain materials by which the enemy can identify the location of the military unit. Surname, rank and insignia of the military unit. It carries the same risk as was mentioned before. If a person mentions some sensitive information in the video, place of deployment, amount of equipment, plans, etc., then in addition to cutting out the sound, you should cover the lips with a black rectangle or a blur, because the information can be read from the lips. Non-standard object that can be found by searching images on the internet and help determine the location of the military. General video plans, where you can calculate the number of equipment and ammunition. With this information, the enemy can adjust his offensive and reconnaissance plans. Specific markings on buildings, addresses of buildings. Markings can give information about the location of military personnel in buildings. An active state enterprise. There is a risk of de-anonymization and missile or artillery attack on the facility. Documents, plans and plan maps. With this information, the enemy can adjust offensive and intelligence plans. Quadcopter filming of the area near the deployment of the military. Such shots can reveal the location of the deployment of the military, armored vehicles, air defense systems, etc. ammunition production sites and equipment setup, including drones and their explosive components. This can give away the deployment of the military, adjust the enemy's offensive and defense plans, and to provide the opportunity for the enemy propaganda to accuse Ukraine of using weapons prohibited by international law. This is an example of what cannot be filmed. The operation of military equipment. By looking at the landscape, you can find out the coordinates of the deployment of equipment and military personnel. Points of impact. The dissemination of such materials may provide adjustment information for subsequent hostile attack. Another example of what should not be published. Air defense work. The dissemination of such materials can also provide adjustment information for subsequent attacks, including such on air defense systems. If you strictly follow the requirements of this instruction, it will turn out that it is better not to film or publish anything related to the military theme. And this option is not devoid of meaning. However, we all understand that photos and videos about the war in Ukraine are the basis of the information fight. Therefore, please, take this as a rule comparing to wearing a bulletproof vest and a helmet. It really is what saves lives. In our next lecture, we'll talk about who are researchers and how they manage their work.